Welcome to Native Voices. You're listening to WDBX 91.1 FM Community Radio of Southern Illinois. And we are very pleased today to have a special guest in the studio. Brian Wilkes is here, and he has quite a bit of interesting things to say about the Cherokee calendar. As we know, the Mayan calendar is the subject of hot topic for the next couple of weeks in a lot of people's minds. And I don't know, let's just talk some of the fun things that we all know about these calendars.
Well, good morning, Dawn.
Hello, Brian. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you. It's been about a year.
Yeah, since last year.
About a year, I think, yeah.
December you came back.
Well, the calendars are fascinating to me. I've been working with them for about 15 years or so. I actually knew an Aztec woman, and she kept the Aztec calendar. And I want to point out that we talk a lot about the differences between the calendars. They are more similar than they're different, but to me it's where they differ that you find some interesting individuality between the different peoples. All of the calendars appear to go back to the calendar of the Olmecs. Now, Olmec, of course,
is the time Ramses II, 3,000 years ago.
Yes, very good, very good. The Olmec is a strange word. It's actually what they were called much later, and it actually means rubber balls. So we can have all kinds of jokes about that, but...
Well, there's the popular games, ball games
yes,
that we
exactly.
play are based on those
exactly.
games that they would play. They had a hoop and they would throw that rubber ball through the hoop.
That's right. And that game turns up again with the Aztec. But they call themselves the Shi. And in the spelling down there, that's spelled Xi, but it could be spelled SHI for that matter, the Shi. And they kept a calendar. Their written language hasn't been cracked yet. But the Mayans kept detailed records of what they were saying about their calendar. So what we know, the Olmec calendar mostly comes through the Mayan notes. And it just works on so many different levels, but so much, as you know, in our native traditions, has to do with observing nature and recognizing the patterns and looking for recurring patterns. And this is what we see happening with the calendars. We then have the Mayan calendars, and when people talk about the Mayan calendar, there are actually about 6 different versions of the Mayan calendar in different communities, and some of them are only about a day out of discrepancy, and some of them are as much as 4 days of disagreement between them. So we talk about the Quiche and the Yucatec, some of the other calendars, the Zapotec calendar, and then we have one of the most recent is the Aztec, and the Aztec calendar is still kept. The Aztec calendar is simpler than the Mayan. It doesn't deal with the long periods of time in great detail, but rather in summaries. Come from that to the Cherokee calendar, which in my opinion is most similar to the Aztec. Again, as we look at the differences and similarities, we find many interesting things that will tell you about the differences between the culture. For example, the Cherokee calendar was still being used, according to my research, as lately as the 1960s in the hills of East Tennessee and North Carolina, and it was used usually by the elders of the family to determine the significance of a particular date, especially for name-giving ceremonies.
Right, I've heard something about that.
Yes. The calendar was consulted, and people would have, it was not unusual to have a ceremonial name, which was a calendar-based name, and then another name, which was a public name. So we have this tradition, which continues well up into the 60s and still continues. Is actually, there have been attempts to revive it. One thing that happens is it's very complicated. There's a lot of math. If you just want to know what time the train's going to get here, you don't need to learn that involved timekeeping system.
So which aspect do you want to talk about first, the timekeeping or the naming ceremonies, or I don't know?
It's your show. You tell me what you want. You tell me what you want to talk about. I used to be a talk show host. I used to do about 2 hours of talk shows a day. I can fill time. Don't worry about it.
I want to.
You ask me if you ask me something I don't know anything about, I will tell you that.
Okay, let's start with the naming ceremonies and the Cherokee calendar. Tell us a little bit more about that.
All right. The Cherokee calendar, each day has a day sign. It also has what we call a wind sign. And the image is that you have in the center of the sky a circle of 13 birds, all flapping their wings. And on any particular day, one of them is dominant. And so we have these 13 birds. So your birth date is a combination of the day sign and the bird sign or wind sign.